Peter Jackson's movie list is full of surprises. Stop-motion cyclops, zombie comedies, and a forgotten vampire hunter he loved so much he remade it himself as a teenager. Without this one, we might never have gotten Braindead's Lawnmower Carnage, or even Peter Jackson's first feature, Bad Taste. Jackson credits Dawn of the Dead for shaping his over-the-top humor and gleefully grotesque style, saying it did shape my sense of humor and splatter style of filmmaking that I did. Working with a budget closer to $500,000, Romero leaned on a ragtag crew of friends and family, some doubling as stunt zombies. Tom Savini, the genius behind the makeup, also pulled double duty as a stuntman, narrowly avoiding disaster when he missed his landing during a mall dive. With its scrappy, no-holds-barred approach and Romero's twisted genius, it's no wonder Jackson calls it unbelievable. Peter Jackson might be known for epic battles and CGI wizardry, but one of his favorite films is almost 100 years old. The General is a silent film from master of physical comedy Buster Keaton. Set during the Civil War, the movie is loosely based on a real military raid where Confederate troops took control of a train. It features all sorts of crazy scenes involving train chases, cannon fire, and even a real locomotive falling from a bridge to a canyon below. Keaton performed all these stunts himself. The film bombed on release, but now reigns as a silent-era masterpiece. Jackson insists it hasn't aged a day. If you haven't seen it, go get the Blu-ray and treat yourself to one of the most incredible filmmakers at the height of his power. One of Scorsese's mob masterpieces, Goodfellas chronicles the rise and fall of real-life mobster Henry Hill with razor-sharp precision. Peter Jackson is a self-proclaimed Goodfellas superfan, calling it his go-to inspiration whenever he feels creatively stuck. "It reminds me of what great film directing is all about," Jackson said, praising Scorsese's fearless camera work. For Scorsese, it was a passion project from the start. Marlon Brando tried to talk Scorsese out of making it, but thank goodness he didn't listen. Peter Jackson credits the film with rekindling his imagination. "That's a movie that I always see when I feel that my imagination is kind of stuck and trapped and I can't think of a way forward." Peter Jackson loves a good creature feature, so it's no shock that he's a huge fan of Jaws. He called it the height of suspense filmmaking and said it's a film that changed everything, kicking off the summer blockbuster era and putting Spielberg on the map. Jackson even remembers watching it as a teenager and being so freaked out he couldn't enjoy a day at the beach. It's wild to think he went from obsessing over Spielberg's work as a kid to actually working with him later in life on the adventures of Tintin. Spielberg directed the film, while Jackson's company handled the motion capture and visual effects. The Fall is a wild fantasy about a paralyzed stuntman, Lee Pace, recovering in a hospital. While he's there, he tells a story to a young patient who imagines it all in vivid detail. What follows is a totally unique adventure that mixes dreams with reality in the most mind-bending way. It's definitely not for everyone, but for the right audience, it's unforgettable. Lee Pace shines in the lead role, so much so that Peter Jackson reportedly cast him as Thranduil in The Hobbit after watching this movie. But the real standout is how the film was made. It was shot over 4 years in 28 countries, and according to director Tarsem Singh, no sets or green screens were used. Everything was filmed on location with practical effects. Roger Ebert gave it 4 out of 4 stars, calling it an extravagant visual orgy and one of the wildest indulgences a director has ever granted himself. This one is a fantasy adventure classic, a loose retelling of the Sinbad legend. What really makes this movie stand out are the groundbreaking stop-motion effects by Ray Harryhausen. The king of stop-motion designed some unforgettable monsters for this film. It was also his first movie in color, and he used his own technique, dynamation, to bring these creatures to life. His work left a massive mark on Peter Jackson. You can see Harryhausen's influence all over The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Even filmmakers like John Landis were blown away. Landis has said that seeing the 7th Voyage of Sinbad as a kid made him want to be a director. "I went nuts," he said. "I was enchanted." And honestly, it's easy to see why. This movie still holds up as a must-watch for any fan of fantasy or classic special effects. Peter Jackson has a soft spot for this marionette-driven sci-fi spin-off of the Thunderbirds TV series. Following a team of brothers piloting high-tech rescue machines, the film left a massive impression on a young Jackson when his family got their first TV in 1965. "I was a total fan," he admitted, reminiscing about building Thunderbird models and staging backyard dramas with his toys. Basically, Thunderbirds was his gateway drug to special effects. The film bombed at the box office, but its influence endured, inspiring shows like Voltron and Power Rangers. In 1993, Spielberg pulled off the double whammy of Jurassic Park and Schindler's List in the same calendar year. Jurassic Park is easily one of the defining movies of the 90s and set the bar ridiculously high for action blockbusters. Sure, the sequels have flashier effects and scarier dinos, but they just don't have the magic of the original. No wonder it inspired some of Hollywood's biggest names. After watching Jurassic Park, George Lucas decided that CGI was developed enough that he could begin work on the Star Wars prequels. Peter Jackson had a similar reaction. He credits the film for reigniting his passion for fantasy, eventually leading to The Lord of the Rings. Even Stanley Kubrick got in on the action, eventually teaming up with Spielberg for artificial intelligence. For Peter Jackson, the original King Kong isn't just a favorite, it's the movie that made him want to become a filmmaker. He first saw it when he was 8 years old, and it left such a mark that in 2005, his career came full circle with his own remake of the classic. By today's standards, the original might seem a bit quaint, but back in 1933, it was a game changer. The crew used stop-motion animation, miniatures, matte paintings, and live-action footage stitched together to create monsters and scenes that blew audiences away. It also inspired an entire generation of filmmakers, including Jackson himself. As he puts it, "No film has captivated my imagination more than King Kong." Captain Kronos is a wild mix of horror and adventure about a vampire hunter investigating strange attacks in a small town. His search takes him to Lady Durward's estate, where things go full-on B-movie chaos. It's lighthearted, packed with action, and even has some solid sword fights. This was one of the last Hammer horror films before the studio shut down in 1979, and unfortunately, it bombed at the box office. Plans for a whole series of Kronos films were scrapped, and it marked the beginning of Hammer's decline. But despite its failure, it found new life as a cult classic with an army of fans. Among them, a young Peter Jackson. He loved the movie so much that when he was just 15, he remade it on Super 18, casting himself as Captain Kronos.